dropping into the shrubbery outside as he'd done so many other times when he and Todd were playing their game. Only the other times, it hadn't been storming or dark. He told himself that spies didn't worry about a thunderstorm. Spies were brave. But he couldn't wait until he reached Todd's house. Putting his head down, he ran through the rain, slowing only when he spotted the figure just ahead. He'd been breathing hard, his boots slapping the pavement, splashing through the puddles. But because of the storm, the person hadn't heard him, wouldn't know anyone was following. That's what always made the game so much fun, spying on people and they didn't even know it. Billy realized that he wasn't scared. His father had been right, though he didn't understand why his mother had gotten so angry with his dad for telling him to face his fears and quit being such a baby. Billy was facing down the storm, facing down the darkness, facing down all of his fears tonight. He couldn't wait to tell Todd. He was smiling to himself, proud, when the figure ahead of him suddenly stopped and looked back. In a flash of lightning, Billy saw the face under the hooded jacket, and what the person was carrying, and screamed. 9 years later. Chapter 1. Cora Brooks stopped washing the few dinner dishes she'd dirtied while making her meal, dried her hands, and picked up her binoculars. Through her kitchen window, she'd caught movement across the ravine at the old Colt place. As she watched, a pickup pulled in through the pines and stopped next to the burned-out trailer. She hoped it wasn't them druggies who'd been renting the place from Jimmy D's girlfriend, before their homemade meth-making lab blew it up. The pickup door swung open. All she saw at first was the driver's Stetson as he climbed out and limped over to the burned shell of the double-wide. It wasn't until he took off his hat to rake a hand through his too long, dark hair that she recognized him. One of the Colt brothers, the second oldest, she thought. James Dean Colt, or Jimmy D, as everyone called him. She watched him through the binoculars as he hobbled around the trailer's remains, stooping at one point to pick up something, before angrily hurling it back into the heap of charred debris. "Must have gotten hurt with that rodeoing of his again," she said, pursing her lips in disapproval as she took in his limp. "Damn boys." They'd been wild young'uns who'd grown into wilder young men, set on killing themselves by riding anything put in front of them. The things she'd seen over the years. She watched him stand there for a moment, as if not knowing what to do now, before he ambled back to his pickup and drove off. Putting down her binoculars, she chuckled to herself. If he's upset about his trailer, wait until he catches up to his girlfriend. Cora smiled and went back to washing her dishes. At her age, with all her aches and pains, the only pleasure she got anymore was from other people's misfortunes. She'd watched the Colt clan for years over there on their land. Hadn't she said no good would ever come of that family? So far, her predictions had been exceeded. Too bad about the trailer blowing up, though. In recent years, the brothers had only used the double-wide as a place to drop their gear until the next rodeo. It wasn't like any of them stayed more than a few weeks before they were off again. So where was James Dean Colt headed now? Probably into town to find his girlfriend, since she'd been staying in his trailer when he'd left for the rodeo circuit. At least she had been, until she'd rented the place out, pocketed the cash, and moved back in with her mother. More than likely, he was headed to Melody's mother's right now. What Cora wouldn't have given to see that reunion, she thought with a hearty cackle. Just to see his face when Melody gave him the news after him being gone on the road all these months. Welcome home, Jimmy D. James hightailed it into the small western town of Lonesome, Montana. When he'd seen the trailer in nothing but ashes, he'd had one terrifying thought. Had Melody been in it when the place went up in flames? He quickly assured himself that